You know, when we think about retirement, we usually picture someone in their mid-60s, maybe even 70s. But what if that entire timeline is just wrong? Today, we're going to dive into the stories of people who absolutely shattered that old myth. They reached financial freedom and ditched the 9-to-5 grind decades ahead of schedule. So let's get into the blueprint they actually used to pull it off.
I know, it sounds kind of impossible, right? Retiring before you're even 40? But we're looking at the real stories of self-made millionaires who punched the clock for the last time way before their 40th birthday. And hey, these aren't lottery winners. These are just regular people who followed a very specific and very powerful plan.
Yeah. Let that sink in for just a second. 29. An age where most of us are just kind of figuring out our careers. This person was already done with it, financially secure and walking away.
And look, it's not always just about escaping a job you hate. For a lot of these folks, it's about getting their time back for the stuff that really matters. You know, family, hobbies, just life itself. The motivation here is super personal, and that's what makes it so powerful. Okay, so what kind of money are we talking about here? Well, one of these early retirees managed to build up a nest egg of $900,000. That is a huge pile of money for sure, but as we're about to see, it might not be as impossible as it sounds.
And then on the other end of the spectrum, another couple managed to pile up a net worth of over $5 million. So the big question is, how on earth did they do it? How do you go from a normal job to being a multimillionaire in like a decade? Well, it all boils down to one movement.
The answer for every single one of them lies in this philosophy known as FIRE. It's an acronym that has totally changed the game when it comes to thinking about retirement.
So, FIRE stands for Financial Independence Retire Early. And the big idea here isn't just to, sit on a beach forever doing nothing. It's about getting to a point where you simply don't have to work for money anymore. Work becomes something you choose to do, not something you're forced to do.
Okay, and this is where it gets really interesting, because the math behind it, it's surprisingly simple. Just figure out how much you spend in a year. Let's say it's $40,000. Then you multiply that by 25. That gives you $1 million. That's it. That's your financial independence number. Once you have that million saved and invested, you can pull out 4% of it, your $40,000, every single year, and in theory, never run out of money.
Okay, so the math is simple enough, right? But actually getting to that big FIRE number, well, that's the real challenge. So let's break down the actual blueprint these people use to make it happen. But before we even get into the how, you have to understand the why. What drives someone to do this? It really boils down to this feeling, this deep rejection of the 9-to-5 grind. It's that moment you ask yourself, do I really want to do this exact same thing every day for the next 40 years? And the answer is a hard no.
And what's so cool is that it really boils down to two main paths you can take. On one side, you've got this intense, laser-focused strategy of saving and investing a ton of your income. And on the other side, a really clever real estate trick to basically erase your biggest bill.
So path number one, this is the all-out hardcore saving and investing route. We're not just talking about skipping a few coffees. We're talking about saving and investing a massive slice of your paycheck, like 30% or more. This means you're maxing out your 401k, your Roth IRA, everything. You're living cheap, maybe sharing one old car, cooking every meal at home, and maybe even working a side hustle or two just to pour more fuel on that fire.
And here's the thing, the investing part isn't some crazy, complicated Wall Street secret. The strategy is actually super simple. You don't try to pick winning stocks. Instead, you just put your money into low-cost index funds that basically own a tiny piece of the entire stock market. It's a set it and forget it kind of thing that just grows with the whole economy.
All right, now for path number 2. This one is super clever. It's called house hacking. Basically, you turn your biggest expense, your rent or mortgage, into an income source. This couple, for example, bought a 4-unit building. They lived in one of the units and then rented out the other 3. The rent from their tenants covered their entire mortgage, plus more, so they were essentially living for free and building wealth at the same time.
But look, it's not all sunshine and early retirement parties. There's a side to this that people don't talk about nearly enough, the intense struggles and the really unexpected downsides of going this hard.
So, you gotta ask, was it just a smooth, easy ride to get there? No way, not even close. The path is actually filled with some pretty serious challenges that will test you in every way possible. I mean, the hurdles they faced were intense. If you go the real estate route, you're dealing with landlord nightmares, mold, bugs, tenants who don't pay. It's stressful. But there's also this huge psychological piece. For many of us, our job is a huge part of who we are. And when that's gone, it can feel weirdly empty. You miss your coworkers,
And suddenly it's hard to relate to your friends who are all still caught up in that 9-to-5 world.
Okay, so after all that hustle, all that sacrifice, what's life actually like on the other side? Do you just stop? Is it just endless vacation? Well, not exactly.
Well, it's not like every day is a vacation, but the freedom, man, that is real. This quote just says it all, doesn't it? It's the ability to get your time back for the simple things, like taking a long walk on the beach in the middle of a weekday, something a normal job would never let you do.
And this is what's so fascinating. For these folks, retirement doesn't mean stopping work. Not at all. A lot of them are still pulling in 6 figures from passion projects or rental income. They're starting businesses they actually care about, learning new languages, traveling for months at a time. The difference is, it's all on their own terms. Some even go back to a regular job not because they need the money, but just because they want to stay busy and engaged.
So, after hearing all this, what are the big takeaways? What can you learn from them if you're even a little bit curious about creating your own path to financial freedom?
Okay, the advice from the people who've actually done it is super clear, and it really comes down to a few key things. First, start as early as you possibly can. Compound interest is like magic, and the more time it has, the better. Second, if you have a partner, you have to be on the same page. This thing takes serious teamwork. Third, and this one's huge, have a plan for what you're retiring to, not just what you're running from. And last, be really careful whose advice you take.
And that really brings us to the final, most important question of all, the one you have to ask yourself. The whole point of this isn't about never working again. It's about having the choice. So, if you woke up tomorrow and money was no longer an issue, what would you do with your time? What would you build? What would you create? What would you do?